Hey everybody, welcome back. What a wild day. Rough PPI number and we rally anyway. Let's get into that. We have a lot to go over. Certain stocks we went over on Saturday are starting to rally. I want to cover those so that you are aware of what sector that is. We went over it on Saturday, but we're going to go over it again right now. This is almost picture perfect when you take a look at it. So we have that 1 o'clock data. Now go look at your calendars and you will go and see your economic calendars. You will go and see a 10-year bond offering that took place right around 1 o'clock. This offering did not go well, but what they did was they repositioned themselves out of the bonds, and what did they do? They transferred into equities. I think we're seeing a shift in the models, in these larger dealer models, and we're going to go through that on Saturday. For now, I'm going to touch base on what you need to watch for tomorrow, because you have a lot of moving parts tomorrow with CPI specifically, and then Friday you have all the financials. But specific levels today, specific stock ideas, specifically what happened, and how it's going to tell you what's most likely going to happen tomorrow with CPI. So if we look down here, we can just see that 1 o'clock drop. They played around a little bit in here while they did their little tally, and then that was it. But we held that 43.80. This was the exact level that we gave in the pre-market live today. It was right in that area. Put that right in there. And you can see we held perfectly, broke below it, rallied right over it, and that was it. Perfect bear flag failure, and nothing works better than a failure, and then you see that rally. This is a classic example of that. If we look at that first 5-minute bar from when that PPI was released, take a look at how that works. And we always talk about these where you want to always mark that first 5-minute bar or 1-minute bar from any piece of economic data and then see how you respond. And you can see the battlegrounds here, and then once those battlegrounds are flipped, you can start seeing the movement. Why is that? Because this is where the algorithms or high frequency traders have said, I will buy everything you have, or I'm going to sell everything that you have at these particular times and prices. And it sets up a range, and you can see how that range was respected in the beginning of the day. Tested on a much larger scale. Let's drop into the hour, and you'll see exactly what I mean by that when I say that. So if you take that hourly and you come straight across and just drop this right around that 53.80, just take it to here for a moment. You can see that level flips, tests, and goes, but this level's been around for some time, so I'm just going to drop the pin down, and you can see what I'm talking about right in here, here, and here. Pretty big level. To some, they would say that this is the neckline. To me, I think that you should view your neckline a little lower, and this is how I would view it, but there's your left shoulder, there's your head, here's your right shoulder. I would view it here, coming straight across. Now, if you want to view it up there, that's fine. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I would view it here, and I would see you've already flipped, come back. And this, the great thing about this is now we've retested that level. So tomorrow, the number one level you're going to want to watch when CPI comes out at 8:30, and we will be live pre-market for this, so you may want to join us. It's actually a lot of fun. And what we do is we just make sure it's acting the way it's supposed to, and then we set up a game plan for the day. But 23.80, I think it's a lot of fun, but I'm a little bit of a nerd. So you can see right in here that 43.80 you're going to want to hold there. Now, if we just flip into the NQ, which outperformed today, one of the things we were looking at in the room was this 50% line, and we just kept talking about it because when these bars come out, you demark 50%, so you have a demarcation line. If you're over there, it just goes to show that you have buyers. I mean, that's just common sense, right? And then you start holding here, tries to flip, can't, breaks over, goes sideways, breaks out, and then look at where we are. And then we can take a better understanding of how that played out. Look at the exact time that this started to break down. Let me get my little highlighter here, and you can see right in here. That's the only time you spent under that bar today. And then if you were just to say, did we spend more time under or over that bar? All right, so it's the little things, it's the details. And I know that people don't think like, well, that really doesn't matter. Well, it actually does, because it tells you who's in control. Even if you did it from the standpoint of just get rid of this part, right, where you're in the middle, and you just come over here and say, okay, well, where did you spend more time? Which had the greater range, above or below? And you might want to remember what I just said there. Where did you have the greater range, above or below? Who's in charge of the day? It was the buyers. Didn't feel like that at one point today, but that's what these days do. And I want to just get this out of the way and just let people know this. When you have a war, and we have a war, we have two wars, but this one in particular is very fresh. So you're getting a lot of data coming out there fast. You're getting, by the way, they're saying they're going to attack the airport today, and then we get some data points, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. And then we have all this uncertainty. Well, who's going to do the attack? And next thing you know, we're all trying to be experts on foreign policy. It's real simple, guys. Just honor your process. Everybody knows what I call these double horns. I mean, that's a perfect double horn pattern. You can see the break and then that's it. But what does all this do for you tomorrow? Well, I'm not going to bore you with the CPI data. I will go over it pre-market. So you're going to want to watch the first 5 minutes tomorrow because I will be live before 8:30 and I will go through all of it then. What I'm going to explain to you now is where you're at, what's actually happening, and where you need to think about tomorrow. Number one, you need to look at what happened tomorrow and the way that we blew it off. That's the very first thing you need to focus on. What happened today was bad, period. It was a high PPI number. Corporations don't pay more, guys, and not pass it on to consumers. We all know the price of a burrito went up. So if you start thinking about it that way, I think that was funny, but we'll say. Comment below if that was funny. So if you start looking at how this is playing out, I was talking about this today like it's just one huge pendant that it's setting up. And we had the Head and Shoulders gang that was on this kick for weeks in the comments going, it's a Head and Shoulders. You don't know what you're talking about. And I kept saying, maybe. It doesn't look like a Head and Shoulders anymore. It looks like a busted Head and Shoulders. So I always try to trade what's actually happening. I try not to look at the crystal ball and tell the world what it's going to do. I just rather trade. I find it's way easier to make money. Let them pick a direction. Go with the direction. Don't tell the market it's wrong. Try to figure out why it's right. I can tell you wholeheartedly, this is very similar to what I did in 03, 04, when we had the Iraqi freedom and we just didn't know what to do. And now I can tell you why it's going up. I'll get into it on Saturday. What I want to do is prepare you for tomorrow and what stocks you need to be looking at. Number one, just watch this DTL tomorrow. You flip this, it's on. It's on like Donkey Kong, if the kids still say that. And I think you're heading back to 16. I've been saying all year that we're going to take out these highs. Now, do we? I don't know. There's a lot on my bingo card right now. I didn't have what's going on in Israel. I still think there's a huge discount to the risk that's there, but this is what we're seeing right now. So you're wedged in here. Let's just look at a couple things here to get into. Look at the roll right here. Look how we're back over that 55 with a close over 55. Haven't been there for what? About a month. The RSI's back over 50. I look at RSI. I like RSI a lot. It's definitely something that I would suggest that you utilize. Now, this is what we have. So tomorrow, what I would do is I would just mark off these levels very carefully and make sure that I understood where we were at and what exactly happened. This is your breakdown bar from 1 o'clock yesterday. Okay, everyone was saying that this was the bond auction because the 3-year bond ended there. Well, the 10-year ended here. So I don't know that that's what this is. I know that that's what a couple investment banks are saying it was. I think this was Biden talking about Americans that are missing, that are over there. I think that's what this was, and also a statement by Hezbollah. I could be wrong, but we made a decision at the end of the day. Here's your 15-minute over, higher high. Who buys at the end of the day? Who buys market on close, guys? It's not retail. It's institutions. They bought ahead of CPI. I find that very interesting. I thought for sure we would trade sideways to have kind of like a milquetoast kind of day at the end. That's not what happened. That's why I always say trade what's actually happening. I thought it was going to be slow. We actually had a decent trade. We had a bunch of them today that were actually really good trades, but we had a really nice trade, very simple trade right off NVIDIA where we were able to just do something as simplistic as a VWAP trade. I'll show it to you really quickly and then I'll show you the timestamps. I always show the timestamps when I show trades so that you can actually see that the trade was done. I don't like showing the amounts of trades because I think that is a little bit of bragging and I'm here to teach, not inflate my ego. So if you can see how you flip over, come back, tries to rally, test, this bar was the whole move. You fought it for hours, and then you have the bond market behind you. Then you have the minutes behind you, and the minutes went very good. It was pretty dovish, where they're all saying, risk goes both ways now. Meaning, what they're saying in the minutes, I'll save you a lot of time. They're saying that there's as much risk to overhike now as to not hike. So I thought that was somewhat interesting. First time we've had a statement like that, and that is changing the market. It's also why the 10-year rallied. I'll point that out in a second. But as soon as we flipped right in here, that was it. That's all I needed. It was a very simple way to set up your stop, and then you're just letting it rally up, and then you're just selling into it and scaling out. Now, for time's sake, I'm just going to point this out. These are different trades that we did today, but I won't even get into them. This is something we're looking at longer term. But I just want to point this out so that you can see the timestamp on when I said it. Let's change the color of that. Do that right there. And then we're just trimming up. And this is just me saying end of day, I'm out. We were short AKRO again today. That was another winner. And then you're just trimming as it's going up. And why am I doing this into this time period? Because I don't want to hold this overnight. I already have a pretty decent sized long position. This was just a day trade. It was just a kicker. So all we're doing there is scaling out as it's trading up. And that's exactly what we did. And it played out perfectly. There's trades like this that will work now. I think there's more risk to holding overnight. So I'm apprehensive to hold more overnight. But when you start looking at trades like this, and you start realizing that we blew off data, and this data was not good. Let's talk about that for a second. I think that's really important. Now, again, we'll get more into this on Saturday when we do the long form video. For those that are new, we follow through on the week, and we come up with a game plan, and then we consolidate it all during the weekday, and then we go for next week on Saturday's plan. So all these videos are connected. That's a fast way of saying it. But let's talk about this. Monthly change in U.S. Producer Price Index. PPI is what they pay, okay? The Starbucks, the Nike, who makes your burrito, all those costs, that's where this is. CPI is us tomorrow. So if you think PPI is going to go up. Now, here's the issue that I see with this. Here's your 0.5 reading. Where are all your new 0.5 month over month readings? They're all here. So if CPI drops and PPI goes up, well, it only comes out of one place, corporate profits. This is something we really have to address on Saturday. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if that's of interest to you. And I really appreciate everybody working with me and commenting on these videos, tell me how to make them better and sharing them. This is a trader's market. You need to trade it. But you need to pay attention to this because this is not what I'm going to say, if the kids say that anymore, groovy. I don't want to keep seeing costs increase. After we went through something like this, that was great. We were worried about deflation. We are no longer worried about deflation anymore, guys. That's not my issue. My issue is the cost of goods to deliver a service or a product going to be so high that corporate profits are going to come down? And then let's say the answer to that is yes. If that's yes, we're going to have to start looking at companies that have scale. Why do you think NVIDIA is going up? Scale. Netflix has major problems here, guys. We're going to just talk about this for a moment. I've traded this a couple times from the short side. Candidly, it's been a little wily, but I think you're finally there with the break. We talked about this the other day, and I would start telling you to develop your themes to the end of the year. The themes that are playing out right now, to me, are absolutely glaring. I think it's pretty glaring. But here's your year-to-date VWAP. You're cracking it, really cracking it. It's your first close below it since being above it. Nobody wants to hold a loss to the end of the year, guys. Nobody's going to want to hold a loss. Do with that statement what you will, but that's how I view it. Some of the people in the room requested this TPST that I cover it. There's not much I can say. They crushed it in the room today with this, and congratulations to them. Absolutely crushed it. Usually I have a statement where I'll come out and say, I don't play these, and I usually don't. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I was asked about it. My concern, if I owned this overnight, would be that they do a secondary. They had very good data. I did not have time to read the data. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on YouTube either. My concern would not be whether or not I'd want to stay in this. My concern is, do I get secondary overnight? Okay, that would be my whole concern. There's no reason for me to show you the volume or point at anything. You know it's through the roof. You know it's crazy. What I see here, what would be very appealing to me is the following. These gaps in the chart would be very appealing to me because they're not all halts. So that means you had so much buying pressure, they just had to lift it on some of these moves. I'm not going to go through all this because we have a lot to cover, but I think this is very important. So if I was to look at this, I'll give you the quick and dirty way that you could do this and come up and try to figure out where you could go off this particular move. So if we go into settings here, you want to put the extensions on. So you just drop the 1 and the 0 so you have demarcations line. 50% is not a fib level for those that don't know that. And then we'll just put some retracements in as well. This is really all you have because the news that you have off this move, that changed the entire chart. So all you have is this bar, right? Now we could go back and say, okay, is there something else? Yeah, there's all kinds of nonsense up here. But this nonsense is different than this nonsense, right? So maybe we could drop a demarcation line here because that does seem like an area that might be of interest. So I will just throw that out there at 1060. I also had a conversation to go over DVA, a bunch of people playing that one. So this is what you have, guys. And you can screenshot this and save you a lot of time. They're your levels and they're your demarcation lines, meaning if I broke 680, I would be gone. I would not be in that. If you start breaking the 68, the 61.8%, I'd be gone. Do I use these? Yeah, if I'm going to trade this kind of nonsense, I will. I will use it because you really don't have anything else. What else are you going to do? You're going to use, I mean, really, I hate to make light of it because they crushed it in the room today on this, but what are you going to use? I mean, I can't use this. I'm going to use that as support. How? Like, how do you use that as support? I've got 2 dots. You can't really use that as support. I'm just being honest. You can't look at RSI. You can't look at MACD. What are you going to do? You're going to drop an anchored VWAP here? I mean, what's the point? Okay, so I'll get stopped out at 4, 3. No, you need to come up with a system. The best system I have is fibs. BIRK stock, we should talk about this. Priced at 46. Everybody got some and they were all excited. They finally felt like a winner, and then they just got absolute rejection. What I like to do with these is I always mark the open. I tried this and I blew it out as soon as I tried. And I put my toe in the water, my toe got bit off, and I just got out. Bought into this rip when we flipped the VWAP, and then that was pretty much it. Got out of the way, maybe 50 cents. It was so fast I didn't even put it out as an alert. One quick thing I would say to you guys, for those that are quick, that are looking for trades, they are out there. This is just something else I was pointing out at the end of the day for a day trade. It worked pretty perfectly. But if you look here, I want to just point this out. This is a piercing pattern, and I can spend some time going through this Saturday. I can do a little bit of it tonight, but this is really important. You get this concept. Breaks down, everybody's panicking. What do? You undercut here and you have the wick. The minute you have the wick and you're here, that's when you know that you have to get involved. When you have that wick here and you turn green, you either get involved, mark that wick as your stop, or get out of the way. Because these kinds of names off the open are extremely whippy, and you can do exceptionally well with them. Now I'm just going to show you this, and you can take a look at these notes if you want, but this is from the room. There's the little bell that denotes the time. Right off the open, I say it, and I'm taking a look at it. We're looking at Google, we're already in there. And then we're going there, and then by 9:32, I am long, and then that's it. I'm long, and I'm pulling something out. And all I'm doing with that move, I like showing the timestamps because it shows we did the trades. You can always comment on that, but I'd rather do that than just show like, hey, look at me, look at how much money I made. I just think I just don't know the point of it, candidly. You're always welcome to comment on it. And I do appreciate the comments on the RSI video, and I have someone that's going to help me edit some of the live trading and show it. So that'll be helpful. Hopefully we'll get it by this weekend. So all I did was buy that. This is a piercing pattern. You undercut here, we get a wick. Here's your open. As long as your piercing pattern is 50% of that bar, I didn't even wait for the close. If you saw the timestamp, 9:32, boom, it was time to go. Got involved, goes up, and then we're trimming right into this. I'm trimming right into this. People wanted it, if they wanted it for a day trade, you're just scaling out the whole way up and you're just pulling money out of it. I personally sold a bunch yesterday. We were up about $30 in the trade on a swing trade. So I sold a bunch yesterday. So pulling something out allows me to rebuild that position, right? So you have especially in these kinds of market, you have an initial position and then you trade around the other position because you know you're going to have volatility. How are you not going to have volatility when you're in a news-driven market? I mean, it's the definition of a news-driven market. I mean, that's what we have right now. So you can see this, and then if I close below this, I was going to get out. This was nonsense. I didn't bite. And then we're trading back up on the day. So I still held the partial. Some people didn't hold the partial. They just took the day trade and they scaled out as they were either taught or how they did on their own on the way out. But word of advice, look at this pattern. You're going to see this all the time. 1, 2 down, reversal, and rip. You don't need a VWAP. You don't need anything. This is pattern recognition. Now, one of the things that we do here is we follow up during the week on what's working, what's not working, and we just review it. So we did this on Saturday's video, and that's what I was saying to people that are new. All these videos are connected. But the number one performing sector on Friday was computer software security. And this is from obviously that day, but you can see the breakout right here. You can see the little W on that sector. And you can see obviously up here where you're going to try and get through on the sector itself. So I gave a couple names that I'm looking at, and there's one that we're actually already in. Now we bought this around 180. It was a very simple trade. This thing's been setting up for some time. But what I focus on, and I look at weekly, something that you may want to consider doing as well. I'm very focused on what the index is doing, and then I'm very focused on what the sector is doing. So the way I view the world is top down. So I look at what is going on. Let's get back to that arrow. Focus on what is going on with the index, then what is the top sector, and then what is the best looking stock. Then from there, I will drill into that stool formation where we talk about the macro. When we get into that, is it macro? Is it technical? Is it fundamental? But that is really after the top of the stool, is really after I'm already in and I already know whether or not I'm drilling down what my time frame is, what the sector is, and then what the stock is. You can have a different system. I'm just simply telling you how I view the world and how I was trained. So if I look at how this is, I have some levels in here that were very interesting. I'm going to overlay some other levels that were very interesting here, how we were respecting the 55, how this is pointing up. Matter of fact, if you really get into crowd and you start drilling into it, you can see the golden cross back here, and you can see even the RSI and how that was going. But let's get to a plain chart. So what I'd like to do is I do like to show the timestamps. So you can see the date right here. You can see when we put the alert out. The reason I do this is nothing is more annoying than someone coming out and saying, oh yeah, I was in that a week ago. I'd like to talk about where we are, when we entered. And so what you're getting from this is a couple things. Number one, you can see this move on Friday. We went through this on Saturday. So you can even see how someone could put these pieces together on these videos themselves and kind of come up with the ideas. Maybe they're going to look at the world differently than I do. Maybe they're going to be better than I am, but at least they're getting the information. So this was really simple. You could see this setup in here. And once we saw that push, that sideways, we saw a little retest right against this level on the way down. And it looked to me like it was going to hold. So we put the position on. We're up about $8 in it now. I would go through these names. I don't think this is over. And to me, the crowd from where we're at right now, 195.94, just kind of looks like a no-brainer. And I think you're just going to really kind of work your way up. For me, this is the sector. If you want to start looking at the sector and what sectors you should be looking at, the first thing that I would be focused on towards the end of the year is marking off from January, the beginning of the year, and just seeing what stocks are hitting year-to-date highs. That is one scan that everybody could run that would make your life very easy. You don't even have to do 52-week highs right now. You could just do year-to-date highs. And the reason I would even say year-to-date highs might be better than 52-week highs right now, you might want to listen to this. You're entering fourth quarter. You're entering fourth quarter. So when you enter fourth quarter, you're entering a different world. Now, what do I mean by that? So when you're entering fourth quarter, you have this whole market right here, and let's pull this back. You only have so many days left, guys. If you're not hitting your goals, you're not hitting your goals, right? But you know who else is worried about hitting their goals? You have 79, 55 bars left, 55 trading days left. You know who else is not hitting their goals? That was an estimation, by the way. You don't have to comment on that if I'm off. Institutional traders are not hitting their goals. You know what names they know that other institutions are not going to sell? The ones that they're up year to date on. If you're up year to date, you're not selling that. You're selling the ones that are hitting the lows on the year. So that's another way you could find some ideas. So you might want to go through the top performing sector and then drill into it. Now, there are other names that are setting up as well, and we can address some of those. I think our time is better spent understanding that we have to get through CPI tomorrow. You had a hot PPI, meaning it was higher than expected. With the higher PPI, for me, one thing that I would be focused on is not only how did the market respond to it, but what was the best performing sector and what was the worst performing sector? Well, your best performing sector, and I've been talking about this for some time. I went over in this in the community about 2 weeks ago. We went over this in the Alpha Chasers community, like, hey, you're setting up a bottom here. Rate of change was setting up a bottom, and I'll show you what I meant by that right here. Take a second, and I think it's worth your time to get this. So I'm always looking for anomalies, and I'm always looking for things that happened before. And what you're going to be able to note from this is the following. XLU is the #1 performing sector today. It's not even close. It's almost double the XLK today. Now, who thought that utilities in a market like this would rally? But here we are. Now, you could say, oh, that's because of knee. It's not. They're buying utilities for a reason. We're not going to get into all of them right now, but you're completely washed out. Look at these peaks right here. And this is what I told them 2 weeks ago with the rate of change. You can see it right here. And now here and here. So you see these marks, and how those marks indicate right here. And now the other day, if you watch these videos, and again, they're all connected, one of the things I was talking about was, hey, this looks pretty washed out. There's a couple other things I use, like DeMark, to determine this. There's a very particular tweezer bottom pattern that's here. There's something going on with the moving averages. I'm not going to get into all of it. But so we put this note out. Now, let's get rid of the note and just start looking at what we're seeing. What else are we seeing here that's starting to set up? See this rate of change? Say you're getting over the zero line. What happens every single time you get over the zero line? Do you see a move? What happens when you break the zero line? Do you start to drop? I mean, it's not rocket science, guys. This is a leading indicator the way that I use it. Okay? I mean, it just is. And people are like, there are no leading indicators. I disagree. Agree to disagree. But when you start breaking these here, it doesn't mean you're going to catch this, but you might catch this. You might not catch the bottom, but you might catch that. Not a bad spot to be, right? It gets pretty obvious. And once you get over that zero line, that's the way the trend changes. So it's a way to determine trend to change. You might want to remember that as well. Throw a lot of little nuggets in this video tonight if you watch it. Next sector, XLK. So you might want to look at those names tomorrow. They might be something. You start looking at how you're trading in here. Guys, this is perfect. There's nothing stronger than a failed bear pattern, because everybody's short. Everyone was so sure that this head and shoulders was going to break. Everybody was so sure that there was no chance of this not breaking. We're certainly going to break. We're going to take out the lows. We're going to have a credit event, the whole thing. Here we are again, and Apple and Microsoft are 45% of this. Might want to watch this. Even if you get a hot CPI tomorrow, I'm not so sure it's going to matter as much as it would have before. We're going to have to see how hot it is if it comes in. I'm leaning towards the fact that maybe it's going to be a little hot, considering how PPI came in. I think it's also very important to note something else. Now, this is down because Exxon did buy PXD. I'm sure everybody saw that, but I'll just mention it. 2.3 is what they paid for it. There's about $7 there. If you're looking at doing the ARB trade where you would short XOM and then go long PXD, I can walk through that. If you guys want to know how to do ARB trades, just comment below and I'll try to work it in Saturday's video. I'll sketch it out. But this is fascinating. We have two wars going on where we have demand from Russia or supply from Russia being limited. And now we're going to have issues most likely in the Middle East, although we haven't seen that yet. And what do we have going on here? Rate of change is negative. We can't rally, guys. Worst performing sector, and I can't really just blame this on Exxon, although Exxon is a very large portion of XLE. But when you start really looking and drilling into this, this is not rallying. We're not really rallying. And here's the other thing that kind of wrap your noodle around that's kind of bothering me. Where's the follow through? Let's get rid of that. Where's the follow through here? Where's my follow through? Why don't I follow through on Lockheed Martin? That's all we're going to get out of it. This is all we're going to get is 1 or 2 days of this. Even defend. This is all we're going to get. There's something there. And the other thing I'm just going to throw out there as well, I would really keep my eye on this Tesla trade. I'm positioned in this. I actually have a longer term position in it now. But I would really keep my eye on this, guys. When you start seeing these particular kinds of patterns, like you're seeing here, wider, and then it gets tighter and tighter, just as you go here, people love this VCP stuff, but it works whether the pattern's straight or whether the pattern is like this. But you start seeing this kind of stuff where you're getting that tight against a DTL, you need to pay attention to it. You really need to pay attention to stuff like this. And again, I think CPI is going to come in a little hot, but we'll see how that goes. Overall, they're the sectors I'm focused on. The other one that just looks like a screaming buy, and you know what's in here, XLC, we've gone over this ad nauseum, but this just looks like you're setting up to break out. Again, all you're doing is trying to see if you can identify what kind of pattern is going on here, and then maybe you can figure out what's going to happen next. Something to think about. That's it.